Okay, are we ready? Is this working? Can you hear me? Good, great. Wonderful to be here, and even more wonderful because I'm here with Nanette, someone I've known for longer than I want to tell anybody. I've watched her career from day one. I've been impressed with it always. I think she's iconic. I think she has done so much for the industry, particularly the New York industry, and it's a real honor to be here on the stage, having an opportunity to ask her about her career and discuss some of the challenges that we face today in the industry. So thank you for the opportunity.
And thank you everyone for coming. And I also look forward to this conversation with Gary because he has been sort of our rock for years. Since the beginning of our second season in business, we were directed to Gary and his partner at the time. And I think we were both kind of fledgling companies. And it's been a fun ride, actually. And they've been there for us all through it.
I think that's part of what our industry is about. What makes it very, very unique and special is I've been in it for almost 40 years. It was a different world 40 years ago. We didn't collaborate. We kept everything private. We didn't speak with other designers. We weren't involved and we didn't relate. But at the same time, the competition was quite different. And the challenges were very, very different. Nanette, in all the years that you've been in business, what are the biggest changes that you've seen in the industry?
Well, what I didn't realize is when I came along and started my business, how fortunate I was to be one of the first American contemporary designers. So I've seen it come from a place where they didn't even know where to put us in department stores, so we were begging to get in, and they were like, well, we don't even have a department for you, to it becoming a very, very, very flooded market with so many designers in that price point and just in America in general, that it's just a very different landscape.
What do you think of the contemporary market today? Do you think the consumer understands what to expect when they walk into a store and go to the contemporary floor?
I think that we need to realize that customers come for a lot of different reasons, and they don't have the disposable income they used to have. So it's interesting because when we didn't think it was going to be a battle to fight like the Zaras and the H&Ms, they are starting to affect our businesses. So we have to really be more personalized, more thoughtful, more of a storyteller to our customers so they feel like there's a connection. And also we have to be very, very aware of their needs and desires.
You said one thing that stood out to me, and that's storytelling. And we talk about it a lot today in the industry because I think it's really important for a brand to be able to tell its own story, to relate directly to the consumer. Since the consumer's on their digital, whatever they're using, iPad or iPhone or phone, and they're so aware of product out there that if you don't tell a story, nothing resonates. So how do you tell a story in this digital space and the retail arena when you don't control what your product looks like at a store like Neiman's or Bloomingdale's or Saks? I mean, that to me is a major challenge. And how do you deal with it? Is it focus more on digital and on getting your own story out there that way?
For us, it's been through building our digital and our social media through, Instagram, which is proving to be very important, trying to keep their interest. With our personal Instagram, with my company, we don't make it commercial because I want it to feel more like they're living life through my eyes and not that I'm trying to sell my customers something. But also there's more attention to having to go visit the stores. I never did personal appearances, and now I do at least 6 a year where I'll fly between Saks and Neiman's in different cities. It's been fun for me because I'm exploring all these new cities, but I also have people on my staff that visit the stores more often and really babysit and handhold.
We talk about that a lot in the industry. It's called a DSA, and it's a sales associate that's dedicated to a particular brand. Do you find that changes the retail performance of the product? Because that burden is put on the designer. the designer pays that fee, not the store. So it's an interesting change in the dynamic of sales on the retail level. Do you feel that it makes a difference?
What I notice when I go with Jackie, who travels with me and is the front man, first of all, they dive on her in the stores because they love connection to New York City and to the big fashion center. And the people that are out there in the market, your army of salespeople, they want to feel connected also. They want to feel part of a bigger brand. And when they have more loyalty, they're going to do a better job of selling your product. So it's really important to build loyalty for that army of people who are selling your product and selling your product to their top customers when it could be anybody else's. But that little bit of personal interaction makes a difference.
Definitely. You're very iconic. You're very identifiable. I think most of America knows who you are. You've been at the forefront of so many movements in the industry in New York, made in New York, made domestically. It's been hard at times. I know, I'm very aware of that. It's been hard for everyone. But what do you do on the digital space now? How much time, effort, and funding do you devote to digital, which is a new category, relatively speaking, compared to what you used to do in the past? How do you allocate? I mean, is it strategic? Is it we need 20% of revenues towards digital because that's going to grow, less focused here, less focused there? How important is the digital space for you?
Digital is really important because I just envision it as the future, and you really have to pay attention to it. You can't ignore it. It's been very tough because we're up against every website that also has our brand that will mark it down after it's on. It's like you can't control what's happening with all these large stores now. So it's not easy for someone small to try to establish their own website and their own clientele. What I'm moving towards is trying to get more product that's specific to our website and more customization of sizes and links and color. So to have more of an interaction and women can order the length skirt they want. So that's where I feel it's going to set my website apart from, say, Bloomingdale's or Saks, because we're competing against them.
Definitely. What are the opportunities to bring consumers to the website? What's your outreach? It's Instagram and so on, but are there other avenues that people are using today to bring the consumer to your website, to a particular designer's website?
We're investing in a small way in online advertising. And it's small, and you build it like 17 people at a time. What is the name of what are we using? Platform. The platform? No. I mean the online advertising no? Okay. I'm not sure, but I know that and it's tiny. It's like paid search and in that way.
And they bring viewers to the site?
They do. They grab viewers through.
And are you able to quantify that?
We actually can. Because we've only done it for a week and we got 17 new followers that actually came through and bought within a week. So my director of retail was really excited by that.
17 new consumers went into Bergdorf's and bought, they'd be very happy.
I know.
So I think that's an accomplishment.
Okay, we're working through El Toro, and then they create something that's specific to what you need and what you can afford.
So my sense is that much more burden is being put on the brand today, on the designer today, than it ever was in the past. Retailers are almost saying, listen, it's your problem, it's not our problem. We're not buying goods, we're just giving you a venue to sell them in. And I'm hearing this more and more, that the pressure's on the designer. Margin guarantees, sell-through guarantees, margin agreements, sell-through guarantees, and then the stores are so promotional. Do you feel that the stores are almost shooting themselves in the foot? They're alienating the brands that they need to move forward with, and rather than encouraging them to work cooperatively, all the burden's being put on the brand. Do you feel that way today, or is this just my
No,
imagination.
I've always known that. Like the first time I had to take like a 300-piece return because something didn't fit well from Neiman Marcus, I swore I was never going to let that happen again. And that was probably like 20 years ago. And then I became a real stickler for fit because I realized early on that you can't let anything get past you that you're not 100% sure is perfect. But what I'm finding is they're not giving things enough time on the floor. And the buyers, even though they say they want to adjust the season for when people are actually shopping, they haven't made that head adjustment yet. And so they want spring in December and January, and then we just have to take it back before it's even had a chance to sell. So I think that we should have a giant summit and say, okay guys, you know, you're gonna get down coats in January, you're not gonna get bikinis.
There's real value in the thought of buy now, wear now. Why would you want to shop full price for a product in December that you're not going to wear until April or May, or January that you're not going to wear until May or June? We're in effect saying, okay, here's the product, look at it, and then when we go on sale, buy it. You know, rather than saying it's time to wear it, buy it before it's gone. And I know some designers are trying to do, when they do resort now or pre-spring, they are trying to make fabrics that are more relevant and weight-wise to that particular season that it's going to be delivered in. Do you feel
no, because then you get the feedback from the buyer saying it looks like it's supposed to be marked down. And then you're like, oh no, it looks like something you would wear then, but you can't, you know, you can't.
I agree with you completely. We need a summit. We need to sit down and figure out what's hurting retail sales at full price. Because now every store is coming to all of the brands I work with, and I know to you, and saying sell through, sell through, sell through. That's all that matters is sell through. Granted, of course, you get gross margin, you get full gross margin if you sell through it is higher at full price. But what are they doing to help that?
It's not changing. I mean, there are limited, we do, each season we do like a special piece for a lot of the stores we work with, and they buy those in limited numbers, and those seem to sell through. So I guess it's got to be more limited buying, special buying, but also I used to buy my shoes. At the beginning of the season, I would buy 3 pairs of shoes full price because I didn't want them to be sold out. Now I'm like on Shop Style with sale alerts. So it's like everybody's doing it. It's almost too easy.
We have Farfetch. And Farfetch it's a brilliant idea and it's great for the consumer, but how does a manufacturer deal with it? You know, it's more the retailer, because does everybody know what Farfetch is? Okay. Well, it's a platform that you want a particular product, and they'll search all the retailers that subscribe to Farfetch and give you options where you can buy this product and at what price. And the price is different everywhere, and you pick the best price if they have your size in stock. So they're giving you a global platform to shop for the best price. And how do the retailers compete with that? I mean, they're constantly lowering price, marking down, and it all falls back on the manufacturer. So what are our alternatives today? I mean, I think our own brick and mortar, but that can be very challenging. I see more brands being pushed into saying, I have to have my own store. It's the only way I can tell my story, and it's the only way I can reach my consumer. And at the same time, most stores, standalone stores for designer brands, do not make money. They're advertising and marketing. It's very difficult to make money because of the rents in the high trafficked areas. So what do you see as the future of ready-to-wear? That's a big question, but you know, what would you like to see change?
I feel the challenge that I also, personally, I sell to a lot of different age groups, and I would love to be able to just do what I do and not have to be pigeonholed. Like, I want to sell to a 16-year-old and a 65-year-old. I have fun with that. So I would love to see the stores open up to a more like a broader feeling within the departments. And for me, I think if it was easier to do more pop-ups in different cities, I would love to try that. the retail situation as a freestanding store is a little, it's hard because people just aren't walking into stores. And then, they'd rather shop where it's easier to return something. Small boutiques are harder, and, but I just wish that I could go back to making what I love and not feeling the pressure of all these margin agreements and markdown money and all that. Just what,
You sound like Albert Elbaz, very similar issues. And how afraid are you of burnout? I mean, you've been in the industry for a long time, producing great collections every season. You've maintained your aesthetic, you've maintained your design integrity. I'm working with 32-year-old designers who are designing 5 collections for themselves and 2 for a European company and doing 6 collaborations, and I'm worried about burnout. How do you feel about that? You manage it so well. How come? What is it about you that has allowed you to continue to love what you do in design and be creative and new all the time?
Well, I get excited about it. We were shipping 12 months a year. I am so happy that we're shipping 10. It feels like a vacation. I wouldn't mind if it was less,
We used to ship 4.
I know, 4 seasons, and that was it. And then it went, as soon as I got into the department stores, one of the deals I had to make was that I had to agree to do 12 months a year. And then you get like your budget from them, and then they know that you're gonna constantly give them the stream of product. But it doesn't make sense anymore. I think we need to have less product out there so the consumer doesn't feel overwhelmed too. So I feel like if we could have longer selling periods that wasn't a 4-week markdown cycle, but a 6 to 8 week markdown cycle, and cut it down to 8 deliveries a year, I would be really happy. But you do go through burnout. But when things are positive and happy and moving, it's a lot easier to stay excited. When you go through hard times, the burnout, and then you just feel like you're grabbing at straws, the burnout feels more like, you get,
Sure.
But
I think that's probably true in any industry, and more so in the creative industries, because you have so much personal at stake. Everything that you put out there is a piece of you. So it's a much more personal response that you get, and it's more visceral for the individual. It's difficult. I don't think the public realizes, and I say this all the time, I don't think the public realizes how hard people work in this industry unless you're in it. I think Hollywood and New York have created this disconnect between the reality of fashion and the Hollywood portrayal of fashion. We work harder than anybody I know, other than maybe lawyers. Longer hours, more pressures, less control, because you're producing something new every season, and more than just once a season. So it's really hard to understand and appreciate what it takes for a designer to endure in this business for so long and to maintain a consistent aesthetic. Now, what if you know who you are as a designer, you always have. What if you felt like you wanted to do something completely different? How do you think, in design, how do you think the stores and the public would react?
well, that happens. You get pigeonholed then. So when you try to stray, it becomes like, oh, that doesn't look like what I go to her for pretty, feminine, colorful. That's what I am. I'm known as that. So if I were to decide to do a whole collection of sort of neutrals that are like drapey, it wouldn't work for me. And it would be nice. Sometimes I just wish I could go to Brooklyn, find a tiny storefront, just not even, yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I just came back from Guatemala, so I have all these fantasies about going there and using those gorgeous textiles and working with the local people.
I'm sure you will, though.
I would love, yeah, I know, that's sort of on my dream list.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. I was walking through Saks Fifth Avenue and the contemporary floor, and you see on one side of it loud, colorful, fun, happy product. You see the other side of the floor, black and white. And there's nothing in the middle. And yet the average customer on this contemporary floor at Saks is 49 to 52 years old. How are they buying these black and white Well, they're not today. So what do we do to fill in that gap in the middle there? How do we maintain, how would you maintain your customer who, as you just said, comes to you for specific look, specific product, and yet fill that gap for the consumer? I mean, isn't that the tricky part? Trying to figure out how to transition and maintain your customer while broadening the base of your consumer. Because there's such a white space in the department stores, in between the black and white and the prints. And it seems to me that someone as creative as you could start to fill that gap.
Well, I mean, that is a customer that's being ignored.
Yes.
And it's funny because there should be another department that they had talked about advanced contemporary for a while, or there were some names being thrown around where you really address that woman who's working, who's in her mid 30s to 60s, because she's actually the customer with the money. Mm-hmm. But everyone's youth obsessed. And I feel like you can be youthful though and dress that grown-up woman. So I think that we have to understand that one doesn't preclude the other. Like you can cover both areas and make somebody feel excited to put clothing on. I think there's just sort of like people are bored with getting dressed too. There's not the trends and the excitement is kind of like just not.
I agree. I say to the retailers all the time, you've got to really give the consumer a reason to buy the product. There has to be a real reason, because we've been buying product for a long time, and we buy it every season, and unless there's a real reason to do it, people are passing by. So how do you do that? How do you generate that excitement season after season? And it's such a challenge. It's such a challenge.
Well, I mean, for me, I love clothes, and I love wearing clothes, and I do a lot. I go out a lot, so I try to make sure that I'm taking care of my needs. And then by doing that, I feel like I'm fulfilling a lot of what my customer needs. When I go on to these different cities to meet women who buy the clothing, I'm always surprised at how cosmopolitan women in Birmingham, Alabama are, and how well-traveled and how smart and how interesting the people are everywhere. So you have to just realize that if you, as a person, as a designer, I always think if I satisfy my needs and if I'm happy and I love it, it usually translates into my customer. But there has been a long period of just like skinny jeans and very basic, and the workplace has gotten more casual. So it's trying to get people back into wanting to feel good and get dressed up, which I think is more of a general sense of gloom that has fallen over our entire, world, and we need some uplifting things to happen, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with that completely as well. I want to ask you a technical question that might interest the audience. When you design, and I don't think people really understand the design process, when you design, do you design into a merchandising plan? Have your merchandisers given you a plan where, here's my core product and I need this many of this and this many, and then you design into that plan? Or do you just do a storyboard and create and then merchandise it after?
I do that. I do a storyboard and create. I find a print or a piece of fabric or a few colors that I love and then build around that. And then it's always been instinctual for me. It's been very much like, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I like. Sometimes, I love doing that. Then we merchandise at the end and try to make sure everything is there. That works. Enough dresses with sleeves, enough dresses that are over the knee, that kind of feeling where you have a nice distribution.
Do you have any codes of the house, like rules that say it's either a love it or a throw it away? It's either, when you edit, is it, is every single piece one that you love?
You know what, I'm trying to do that more and more, because for a while there it was like, just put that in because it's the right price point, put that one in because it has a sleeve, put that one in. And now I'm like, no, if we're not all madly in love with it, it's not staying. So you have to be, and I challenge the people who work with me too. I'm like, Because that used to be like, oh, our customer would wear that. I'm like, no, that's not going to work. If you're not going to wear it, then I don't want it. Show me the version you're going to wear.
I like to hear that. I do, because it shows the integrity of the designer and being selective and putting in the best pieces and not just what the store might want, because frequently the stores are wrong. The buyers are young and inexperienced, and they're not picking right. How much influence do you have, or do your salespeople have, over the buys that the stores make?
Well, our line is so edited now. So we're producing about 30% less a month than we used to. So what they see is a very, very tight edited story. And so then that they're basically they're not allowed, they're not able to sort of like go off of what we see as the top bodies.
And you find that better?
Absolutely. It's just better. And they want that. They want us to direct them because, like you said, a lot of buyers are confused. They don't know what people want. There has been no pushback saying your line's not big enough. I mean, for the while, at the beginning of the recession, everyone was like, more, more, more. Your line needs to double. Your line needs to be bigger. And then that proved to be just a money waster. And now when we're...
I know from my experience with brands that one of the biggest siphons of cash is product development. We see small brands spending so much on product development, and it's because they're not efficient in the product development department. Do you feel that you've gained a real handle on product development, and are you able to get the gross margins you want by more efficient systems in product development?
Product development is interesting because my husband used to tell me it's product development, invest, invest, invest. But now, and I think as you're younger, you have a lot of ideas and you don't know which ones are the right ones. So I felt like when I was younger, I was always confused about which one to put into work. Now, as I've grown more mature, like I can focus on what are the things that should go into work. I find that a lot of companies that work overseas really overdevelop because they don't really know what they're getting back. I can't work like that. I can't put it on a piece of paper and send it to China and think it's going to come out nice, because I've seen it happen a million times where you have a vision, a pattern maker drapes it, and 3 drapes later it's right. And I do that. I try everything on and I work on it and try to understand what I'm seeing, what I'm feeling, what I need it to look like, because you have disappointments. So you do have to keep working. And if you really believe in an idea, it's worth it to keep going until you have it right. But I think the idea of having a design room of your own in New York is extremely important, and that's what a lot of people don't have because they're working overseas. And having that design room, it's staffing the design room too that's expensive.
It is. Having an atelier in a house is probably the most expensive aspect of development. But at the same time, if you're doing it in-house, you can also save in other categories. I know I hear designers all the time, I witness it. They'll design something and they'll say, oh, but I got to see it in a different color. I have to see. Do you do that?
No, but my salespeople say that if there's 3 colors and one is black, I have to make it up in all 3 colors because the buyers cannot visualize an extra color. Like even if the top in the same fabric is sitting right next to the dress that's blue, she needs all the colors for the buyers.
Well, that I understand, but I'm asking in the design and development stage, you're at a point where you can imagine it in the other color, correct? I mean, you don't need to sample it in every color.
No, I mean, oftentimes we'll make it in the best color so that it passes through our sales team fast, because we're like, don't make it in that horrible color because they're never going to want it. Or you do know, yeah, or if I'm saving fabric, I will make it in a horrible color just to make, because, and then like, yeah, I can visualize, because it's more about shape and silhouette.
And a lot of young designers can't, and this is an area that they always need help in. What have been the high points of your career? What have been the most exciting and most gratifying moments in your career?
Let's see, there's been a lot of different landmark times. I mean, when I first started my first coterie, we had done $250,000 in business in 3 days, and it was all COD. So that was like, people were shocked. There was a line to get into our room at Coterie during that time. And then things went really low. And then we had like a 10-year period of trying to pay back money that my dad had mortgaged his house and loaned to me. So it took me 10 years to pay him back. When we hit the 2 million mark, I remember just there was always a dollar mark that we wanted to hit that we felt like was going to make a difference in the world. At one point, we went from like $500,000 a year to then the 2 million and then 7 million, I remember. And I remember always being surprised. What felt like after 9/11, I thought we were all going out of business, but instead business like soared. And it just felt like I was on this fun ride. I mean, I had so much fun doing it, and everything we put out there sold. And I look back on like, it was just fun and exciting, and everything felt new. So I feel like those years where there was always like a new hurdle that we had crossed. We signed licensing in Tokyo. When it was like fashion was very new in New York when I first started, which I hadn't really realized, because there weren't that many.
In the middle of it, we didn't realize it at all.
I know. And then doing my first runway show was a big push, because I was terrified, really terrified. And so I had a 9 a.m. slot. I had they were wearing like Daniel Green slippers because we didn't know where to get shoes. But just every time you tackle something you're afraid of felt like a big hurdle and a big reward.
How was it watching your daughter walk the runway?
I know. So she's
I don't
been
know
with me
if
from
the audience is aware
every show. That was really a highlight. I cried.
She used to accompany you out at the end, and then she walked as a model on the runway.
Oh, we should have brought, she walked the runway for the spring of 2015 runway show. And there was a gasp in the audience when she came. I was terrified for her because she stepped out and everybody went, ah! And I thought, oh no, she's gonna freeze. But she did a great job. She was really sweet. So that was definitely a highlight. I mean, I think about how I carried her out the first show. She was in my arms, and then she walked the runway.
Well, are we good on time? Sure. We'd love to take questions. I'm sure many of you have them, so let me just try to go around the room. Let's start there.
Well, it's very inspiring to hear your story, because a lot of my clients really like your style, and I think you're a great brand representative. Just seeing you for the first time in person today, knowing who you are, what you look like, you represent your brand, I think, really well, and that's what I do for a living. I'm curious, I was really struck by hearing you say that you would love to be able to design more of what you really love, and I'm curious if you could be willing to share with us what that look and feels like to you. What is that piece of love to you? How could you do more of that?
Well, just more, I think flowy, a little bit like sort of tattered, softer things. But I think that what people associate with what I want to do would require a lower price point, or, manufacturing in another. I don't know. I just feel like I feel held back by that because it feels a little younger than who my customer is, and a price point that's a bit lower, in order to really get like the feel and the vibe, because I want to put lots of beautiful fabric into these long flowy dresses and just have a lot of fun with it again. But I do feel like you're restricted by price point always. I am so tired of being restricted by price point. It's killing me. And that just started happening in the last 5 years. So that's one of my wishes, that we could just do whatever we wanted and people would be there to buy it.
Yes.
This question is geared more towards Gary. You had mentioned how you get the customer to buy. Are we really training the customer to
You know, I think we are.
We're really the ones who are setting the tone, so that's how they get excited about getting your dress, because it's a great price. So somehow or another, we need to change that dynamic.
Well, we have created an incredibly promotional environment. And there are some stores that are more promotional than others, and we all know who they are, and many brands avoid them, avoid selling to them for that reason. But how do you then grow your business if you're not in every major brick and mortar store today? You reach a point where you have to, and then again, it comes back and hurts you because of the promotional environment. The retailers have trained the public to wait for the sales. And the seasonality, what Nanette mentioned before, when we ship, we're shipping way before the time you can wear it. So why buy it? I mean, why not wait? You know it's going to go on sale. So unless it's a remarkable piece and unless budget is not an issue for you, which is why luxury still continues to grow and grow and grow, because that consumer wants it when they see it and they don't care and they have the pocketbook to pay for it. So luxury, we saw Hermes's numbers were up something like 28%. Nordstrom's were down a huge percentage. So in the high end of luxury, it has not happened. There are no promotions. Hermes never goes on sale. And you would think retailers would look to that as a model, but they have not.
Let's have that summit here.
Excuse me?
Let's have the summit.
Yes,
Get it all together.
you definitely do. You definitely do.
Even if we can convince them to wait 10 days on their markdown.
Correct.
I tried doing that with my store, like push it up a week of a year
And the
until we get.
problem is, like when Bloomingdale's goes on sale, Saks is watching, and Neiman's is watching,
know.
and Nordstrom, and then they have to go on sale.
I'm not sure what goes on in Japan now, but in Japan, I believe they had certain dates that all the department stores had sales.
Europe too. Europe. So
We should get on that floor on that.
we should, but we're a democracy, and it's hard. Yes, right there.
Yeah, I've got two questions. What's your specific plan for the international market? I know the Asia is a different market, and in China, the younger population, they have always the money to buy instead of the older people. So what do you have any plan for the China market? That for that? For Gary, I know you are helping a lot of designers doing the brand. So there's a lot of quick fashion and like H&M, and also there are the online sales like Amazon and Alibaba. So basically, what is the measure you are taking for protect the designers? So,
You want to answer first?
For me, I would love to be in the China market. We've been researching, we're trying to understand how to get there, and we've heard that in the China market, they really want made in New York and made in America products. It's just that you have to go in with a distributor, and it's not as easy as you would think. So hopefully one day I'll get in there.
Well, why is it so easy the other way around? If it's so difficult for us to go somewhere else, we should have that same kind of.
Well, it's really the system, the retail system in China. It's a vertical system and has been for many years, and they're first starting to get into a more traditional retail model. So in order to reach these stores, they don't go to market to buy. So you need a distributor who knows them, who can either build a little shop and shop for you or take the product to these large vertical manufacturers who will then distribute for you. It's a very different model there. It's not been a consumer economy for that many years, so they work in a very different model. I'm sorry, what was the
because I don't protect a lot of designer brands. I know how to protect the designer brands with
from being
quick fashion and also online.
from being copied or from being?
Yeah, from being.
Well, we can't. We say today that if you preview, if you do a preview of your collection, it's going to be on the floor of Zara or H&M before you even get your production samples into the showroom. There's nothing you can do about it. I mean, if you have in a sense, I think we have to take it as a compliment. You're a great designer, you're creating something wonderful in the designer price point. They recognize it, they knock it off, and they make $1 million, but it's a different customer. So, I mean, I don't think you can protect yourself from it, not legally at least. I think if we were closer to market in terms of when we ship and when we sell, you know, what the consumer wants, the buy now, wear now, would protect ourselves from that, giving them less lead time to knock us off. But
Or if Runway was geared towards the consumer and not towards the buyer and press, so that everybody could be surprised when they actually saw it,
correct. I mean, we have
which is how it used to be.
two things going on now, and I hear this from designers day in and day out. They have to do two collections, one for editorial and runway, and one that they're actually going to sell. Now, this is double the cost for many of them. Samples cost a fortune. In New York particularly, it's very expensive, and yet we have a disconnect there as well. What you see in editorial, and you see, everybody goes, look at these prices are crazy, you know, in Vogue and in Elle and so on. But that's not what ends up in the store. Half the time you can't find the product in the store, and yet we're still creating these two collections. Do you do editorial pieces?
No, actually, I've gotten really good at everything that goes down the runway. The last spring and fall shows, almost everything that went down the runway made it into the showroom. We do have to like take away gobs and gobs of fabric because you need the drama, and and also runway shows became about playing to like television and video, and it's not, yeah. So it has to be super dramatic. So we work from like, it's two drapes. It's like starting off making it wild and amazing, and then more, and then you have to like trim it to make it affordable. But also, most women can't wear all that fabric anyway. So you want to try to at least put on the runway what you're going to make, but then it has to get modified. So that's expensive.
Yeah, it's expensive and makes no sense. Yes?
To speak to that, most often the editorial pieces are the most unwearable pieces, and like you said, those price points sometimes not produced or in such limited quantities in pre-order or what have you. How do you feel a lot of people in the industry have sort of been saying, as opposed to this real wow factor of editorial, that spring 16 is a season of really wearable clothes, like not maybe so great for the magazines of wanting to do these polls, but for, you know, that girl or, you know, whatever, like she can wear the pieces. They're beautiful, but they're wearable. Do you agree with that?
I think to an extent the magazines are becoming less and less relevant. We see the layoffs at Condé Nast yesterday. We see divisions folding. We see them doing fewer issues per year. I think what we see digitally is much more important to us today. I think designers need to design clothes that their customer can relate to. Not just say, yeah, that's a beautiful piece, it's gorgeous, and Rihanna could wear it, you know, to the Met Ball.
But then a consumer can buy it.
Yes. I think we have to relate directly to the consumer today, and that's how we generate sales and loyalty, and we have the ability to do that in the digital platform. We never had that ability in the editorial platform because it's got to look so big, as you said, and it's not the product you're going to find in the store. So I think we have opportunities as well. I'm not saying this is a negative process. It's just a process that we all have to adapt to and cull from it the opportunities that we see. And I think that's one of them, creating product digitally for your consumer. You know, that they're not going to look in the magazine and say, it's beautiful, but I can't wear that. Right. Or it's $12,000 for a pair of pants. I'm not doing that, you know. So there is opportunity there. Yes?
It seems like in the industry there's this tug and pull where you have a number of designers now asking for the industry to slow down, to be more about creativity as opposed to the business aspect. And then you have a lot of people who are pushing out all these collections, and it's all about the immediacy of it. Do you think that the ability to actually edit down things is possible to have it be more about the creative process?
You want to answer that?
I'm not sure I followed the question though. You're saying,
A lot of people like with Lola and yourself, you're talking about to actually slow it down or to have it be more about the creative process. Is that even possible? I mean, you have thousands of designers now who are just pushing out all these collections. Is it possible to actually edit it down, or is it just going to continue?
Edit down the number of designers or the number of pieces, or what are we talking about?
slow. It's hard because everybody's up against numbers always. You're up against numbers from the previous year. You're up against numbers from and it would be us, like you said, just adjusting to lower growth rate, and that would be the new normal. And I think that we're being forced into looking at that as our potential future, and having to be making less product and making, and maybe we could bring in a little bit of people thinking hard about where they're buying it and how they're buying it, and maybe we can convince all those people that are mass producing in really bad conditions and, human rights violations. I mean, I would love to become a society of people that were more thoughtful purchasers. But I mean, all of that is happening to us whether we like it or not, hopefully, because you have the one side of the market where we're just trying to keep our integrity and do the business we're used to doing, but having to adjust to, a slower cycle. And then the other side of the market that's grabbing all this business and making everything really inexpensively in ways that are not always humane. So I think it's more of a mind switch that we need to all sort of have.
That's a good answer. I think we have time for one more. One more question? Yes.
Hi.
I just want to ask you, I think the problem for me, and I think of a lot of people, is the buyers and what they buy, and how they are so afraid of buying something new and buying, so they keep going back to what they're comfortable with, what's sold really well, maybe tweak it a little bit. And, my feeling is that's why people are getting bored going into stores.
I agree completely.
Same old, same old.
Well, I think part of the problem is, as I think I mentioned it earlier, the buyers are coming in with their heads buried in Excel spreadsheets. What's sold, here are the statistics, here's what I need. And we used to have great merchants in our industry who would take chances on product, who would identify great product, who would find and discover fantastic designers and brands. And now the buyers are not the ones doing that. The merchandisers are not the ones doing that. It's Instagram and it's the digital platform that's showing all of these buyers where they should be looking. So that's kind of backwards. The retailers should be in the forefront of new product. They should be setting trends. They should be showing us what they can give us that's new and exciting. And I don't think they are. I think they're looking, as you said, they're conservative, looking at numbers and not product.
I think the buyers are just confused. And I feel bad for them. I think they're in a hard place right now.
I mean, their jobs are at stake, so they're looking at statistics. If they don't have sell-throughs, then they lose their job. If they buy wrong, they lose their job. So it's got to be more of a group effort. And I think we need to all work together, retailers and brands, not separate them more, but work closer together.
We could go on here all afternoon with this topic because it's fascinating and people are really fascinated with it, and I'm sure that every woman in this room has something to say about it. But we have to end this now. But before we do, when we were talking, when I introduced you and then I listened to you and you were talking about fashionable and wearable, you really have it. So
Well,
your
thank
clothes
you.
are beautiful, really.
Thank you.
That's great.
So